in the quiet spaces between heartbeats, where the world grows soft and dreams begin to whisper, there exists a path older than mountains, gentler than morning mist. Tonight, we walk this ancient way together, where cherry blossoms drift on unseen. Currents and wisdom flows like honey from the comb of silence. Before we begin this gentle journey into the heart of letting go, if these calming wisdom stories bring peace to your evening hours, I invite you to subscribe with the softness of a prayer. Offer a gentle like as you might place a flower on an altar, and share in the comments below where in this beautiful world you're listening from tonight. Let us create a sangha of souls, connected across continents by the shared longing for peace. Picture, if you will, a monk walking slowly through a bamboo forest at twilight. His bare feet make no sound on the earth-soft path. Incense from a distant temple curls through the air like visible prayers, carrying with it the essence of jasmine and sandalwood. Each step he takes is both an ending and a beginning, each breath a small death and rebirth. The cherry blossoms above him fall without effort, without regret, teaching the first lesson of our evening together, the profound beauty of letting go. Tonight, we explore the most tender of all Buddhist teachings, how to release our grip on suffering, how to open our hearts like lotus petals to the sun, and how to find in emptiness not loss, but the fullest expression of love. This is not a lesson to be learned with the mind alone, but felt with the entirety of your being, absorbed like moonlight into water dot as the evening deepens around us. As your breath naturally slows and your body settles into comfort, we begin our journey on the eightfold path of peaceful surrender. May this story be a bridge between the turbulence of day and the sacred rest of night, a gentle companion as you drift toward dreams. Asterisk, asterisk, in the quiet spaces between heartbeats, where the world grows soft and dreams begin to whisper, there exists a path older than mountains, gentler than morning mist. Tonight, we walk this ancient way together, where cherry blossoms drift on unseen currents and wisdom flows, like honey from the comb of silence. Before we begin this gentle journey into the heart of letting go, if these calming wisdom stories bring peace to your evening hours, I invite you to subscribe with the softness of a prayer. Offer a gentle like as you might place a flower on an altar, and share in the comments below where in this beautiful world you're listening from tonight. Let us create a sangha of souls, connected across continents by the shared longing for peace. Picture, if you will, a monk walking slowly through a bamboo forest at twilight. His bare feet make no sound on the earth's soft path. Incense from a distant temple curls through the air like visible prayers, carrying with it the essence of jasmine and sandalwood. Each step he takes is both an ending and a beginning, each breath a small death and rebirth. The cherry blossoms above him fall without effort, without regret, teaching the first lesson of our evening together, the profound beauty of letting go. Tonight, we explore the most tender of all Buddhist teachings, how to release our grip on suffering, how to open our hearts like lotus petals to the sun, and how to find in emptiness not loss, but the fullest expression of love. This is not a lesson to be learned with the mind alone, but felt with the entirety of your being, absorbed like moonlight into water dot as the evening deepens around us. As your breath naturally slows and your body settles into comfort, we begin our journey on the eightfold path of peaceful surrender. May this story be a bridge between the turbulence of day and the sacred rest of night, a gentle companion as you drift toward dreams. Asterisk, asterisk, 2,500 years ago, in a grove of sal trees, the Buddha spoke these words as gently as rain falling on leaves. All conditioned things are impermanent. Strive diligently. These were among his final teachings, offered not as commandments carved in stone, but as a friend's whispered reminder of what the heart already knows, but sometimes forgets in the busyness of living. The word he used was Anicca, impermanence. Not as a philosophy to debate, but as a truth to feel in your bones, the way you feel the changing seasons or the tide's eternal rhythm. Everything that arises must pass away. Every joy, every sorrow, every breath, every heartbeat, all of it flowing like water in a stream that never steps in the same place twice. To understand this deeply is not to become sad, but to become infinitely tender with all of life. Imagine you are holding a snowflake on your palm. Its crystalline beauty is perfect, unique, never to be repeated in all the cosmos. You could try to preserve it, to keep it safe from the warmth that will inevitably melt it. You could build refrigerated rooms and worry constantly about temperature changes. You could spend your whole life anxious about protecting this one perfect snowflake. Or ... You could simply witness its beauty completely, feel grateful for the brief miracle of its existence, and watch with wonder as it transforms back into the water from which it came. This is the teaching of impermanence, not a cause for despair, but an invitation to love more fully. When we truly understand that nothing lasts forever, each moment becomes precious beyond measure. The morning coffee tastes richer. The smile of a stranger touches deeper. The feeling of warm blankets on a cold night becomes a gift we don't take for granted. The Buddha taught that our suffering comes from tanha, literally meaning thirst, but pointing to our deep craving for things to be different than they are. We thirst for pleasant experiences to continue forever. We thirst for unpleasant experiences to end immediately. We thirst for neutral experiences to become exciting. This constant wanting, this endless reaching for something other than what is present, creates the friction that we experience as suffering. But here, in the gentle darkness of this evening, we can practice a different way. With each slow breath, we can notice what is actually here right now. The softness beneath you, the rhythm of your heartbeat, the temperature of the air on your skin, the sounds drifting in from the world outside your window. Not judging these sensations as good or bad, not wishing they were different, but simply receiving them like a lake receives rain completely, without resistance. The third noble truth whispers to us across the centuries: suffering can end. Not because we achieve some perfect state where nothing ever changes or challenges us, but because we learn to dance with change instead of fighting it. We learn what the Zen masters call acceptance without resignation, embracing what is while remaining open to what might unfold. Picture a willow tree by a river, its branches long and supple. When the wind comes, the willow doesn't stand rigid like an oak, doesn't fight the force that bends it. Instead, it moves with the wind, gracefully, finding its way back to center when the storm passes. The willow survives what breaks the rigid trees because it has learned the secret of flexible strength, of yielding without breaking. This is what we practice in our daily lives, not becoming passive or indifferent, but learning when to bend and when to stand firm, when to hold on and when to let go. Each challenge becomes a teacher, each loss a doorway to deeper compassion, each ending a seed of new beginning. Asterisk, let me tell you about Master Lin, an old monk who lived in a mountain monastery where the mist clung to pine trees like prayers made visible. This was long ago, when time moved differently, and wisdom was passed from heart to heart, like the lighting of one candle from another. Master Lin was known throughout the valley, not for his scholarly knowledge or miraculous powers, but for the quality of peace that surrounded him like fragrance surrounds a flower. One autumn morning, as golden leaves drifted down like blessings, a young merchant arrived at the monastery gates. He had traveled for many days, his silk robes dusty from the mountain paths, his face etched with the kind of worry that comes from carrying too many burdens for too long. He sought an audience with Master Lin, having heard that the old monk possessed the secret to ending suffering. The merchant was ushered into a simple room where Master Lin sat quietly, his weathered hands resting in his lap like two autumn leaves. That had found their resting place. Tea was served in cups so thin they seemed made of captured moonlight. For a long while, the two men sat in silence, the merchant fidgeting with his sleeves, the monk still as a mountain. Finally, the merchant could wait no longer. "Master," he said, his voice tight with urgency, "I have lost everything. My ships were wrecked in storms, my warehouses burned, my family fortune built over generations has vanished like smoke. I cannot sleep, cannot eat, cannot find a moment's peace. Everyone says you know the way to end suffering. Please teach me quickly, for I cannot bear this pain much longer." Asterisk, asterisk, Master Lin nodded slowly, as if the merchant's words were stones dropped into the still pond of his awareness, creating ripples that he watched with gentle attention. And he did something unexpected. He reached across the low table and, with great care, lifted the merchant's teacup. It was nearly full, the tea still steaming with aromatic warmth. "This cup," Master Lin said softly, "contains the finest tea in all the provinces. It was picked at dawn when the dew still held the night's dreams. It was processed by hands that have known this craft for generations. It was prepared with water from a spring so pure that immortals are said to drink from." He paused, holding the cup with the reverence one might show a sacred relic. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. The merchant nodded impatiently. "Yes, master, but what does this have to do with my suffering?" Instead of answering, Master Lin slowly turned the cup over, allowing the precious tea to spill onto the wooden floor where it spread in a dark stain, soaking into the grain of the wood and disappearing forever. The merchant gasped, starting forward as if to prevent the waste, but it was already done. "Why did you do that?" The merchant cried. That tea was priceless. Master Lin smiled with the gentle warmth of sunlight on water. "Tell me, friend, are you suffering because the tea is gone, or because you cannot accept that it is gone?" The merchant opened his mouth to protest and closed it again. Something in the old monk's eyes, not sadness for the spilled tea, not triumph at making a point, but simply the clear, untroubled gaze of someone who understood something essential about the nature of things, made him pause. The tea was beautiful. While it was in the cup, Master Lin continued, his voice barely above a whisper, it would have been beautiful as we drank it, warming our bodies and delighting our senses. Now it nourishes the wood of this floor, and tomorrow it will help feed the tree outside this window. Its beauty continues, but in a different form. Only our attachment to its previous form creates the illusion of loss. The merchant sat back, his mind grappling with this simple demonstration. But my wealth, my family's legacy, was like tea in a cup, Master Lin said gently. Beautiful while it was held, but never permanent. The storm that sank your ships, the fire that burned your warehouses, these were not punishments from heaven or signs of your failure. They were simply the wind that turns the cup over, the natural flow of life that brings both filling and emptying, both gathering and scattering. They sat together as the afternoon light slanted through the paper windows, painting everything in gold. Slowly, the merchant began to understand. His suffering was not the loss of his wealth. It was his inability to accept that loss. His pain came not from the events themselves, but from his desperate wish that they had never happened, his fierce resistance to the reality of impermanence. "Master," the merchant whispered, "how do I learn to let go?" The old monk poured fresh tea into both their cups. "You don't learn to let go," he said with infinite gentleness. "You learn that you never actually had hold of anything to begin with. Everything has always been flowing through your open hands. You simply practice noticing the beauty while it's here and blessing it on its way when it's time to go." As evening settled over the mountain monastery, the merchant found himself crying, not from grief, but from relief. For the first time in months, his shoulders relaxed, his breath deepened, and he felt the profound peace that comes from stopping the fight against what is. He stayed at the monastery for 3 days, not to learn complex teachings or practice difficult meditations, but simply to sit with Master Lin and remember how to watch life flow like tea from cup to floor to earth to tree. Each transformation a small miracle, each ending a gentle beginning. Asterisk, asterisk. Now, as the night deepens around us like a gentle embrace, we turn our attention inward, following the soft thread of awareness as it winds through the chambers of your being. This is not a journey that requires movement of the body. Indeed, the deeper we go, the more still we become, like a diver descending into the quiet depths of an ancient lake, where light filters down in silver streams and silence has weight. Each breath, you become more aware of the space between thoughts, those precious gaps where pure awareness rests without needing to name or claim anything. Your breath flows in pause, flows out pause. In these pauses, what dwells there? Not emptiness as we commonly understand it, the absence of something, but fullness so complete it needs nothing added to it, like the fullness of space that contains all the stars yet is touched by none of them. The Buddha called this awareness sati, mindfulness, but not the busy kind that judges and categorizes every experience. This is the gentle mindfulness of a grandmother watching children play, present and protective, but not interfering, loving without possessing. As you rest here, you can practice this quality of attention with your own inner landscape. Notice, without trying to change anything, the sensations in your body. Perhaps there is warmth where the blankets touch your skin, coolness where the air meets your face. Maybe there is tension somewhere, in your shoulders, your jaw, the space between your eyebrows. Greet these sensations like old friends arriving. For tea, oh, hello, tension in my shoulders. I see you there. You've been working hard today, haven't you? No need to push them away. No need to invite them to stay longer than they wish. Simply acknowledge their presence with the tenderness you might show a small child who is tired and needs rest. This is the practice of non-attachment in its most intimate form, being fully present with your experience while holding it lightly, like cupping water in your palms to drink. You receive what comes without grasping. You let go of what passes without chasing after it. Each sensation, each emotion, each thought that drifts through awareness becomes like a cloud moving across the vast sky of your being noticed, appreciated for its unique shape and color, then released to continue its journey. The ancient texts speak of the witness consciousness, that part of you that observes all experiences but is touched by none, like a mirror that reflects everything but keeps nothing. Tonight, you can rest in this witnessing awareness, feeling how it remains, constant whether you are happy or sad, comfortable or uncomfortable, thinking or not thinking. This witnessing presence is your true nature, the Buddha nature that has never been wounded, never been diminished, never been separate from the peace you seek. Imagine that you are sitting by a gently flowing stream at twilight. Leaves float. By on the water's surface some green and fresh, some brown and weathered, each one carried by the current without resistance. These leaves are like your thoughts and feelings, some pleasant, some challenging, all temporary, all part of the natural flow of life moving through you. You are not the leaves, you are the awareness that watches them pass, the spacious presence that remains constant, while all of life flows through you. As you deepen into this recognition, you may notice that the one who has been seeking peace is the same one who has always been at peace. The one who has been trying to let go is the same one who has never really held on to anything. This is not a philosophical understanding, but a felt recognition, like suddenly remembering your own name after a moment of forgetfulness, or like coming home to a place you realize you never actually left. In this recognition, suffering begins to dissolve, not because conditions change, but because you remember your true relationship to all conditions. You see that you are the sky, and everything else, thoughts, emotions, sensations. Circumstances are weather patterns moving through your vastness. Sometimes there are storms, sometimes gentle rain, sometimes brilliant sunshine. But the sky itself is never disturbed, never made dirty by the clouds, never diminished by the storms that pass through it. Asterisk, asterisk, in the quiet monasteries of old Tibet, there lived a master known only as the Laughing Sage. This seems contradictory, perhaps in traditions often associated with somber meditation and serious study. But this master had discovered something that the ancient texts whisper about in their most hidden verses, that enlightenment and joy are not opposites but dance partners, that the deepest wisdom often wears the face of gentle humor. When students would approach him with heavy questions about the nature of suffering, he would sometimes respond by pointing to a butterfly landing on his shoulder, or by offering them a perfect pair, saying nothing at all. Not to be mysterious or cryptic, but because he understood that some truths can only be transmitted through presence, through the quality of being that needs no words to be felt. Here is one of the gentle surprises he taught. The Buddha never asked us to eliminate desire, only to hold it lightly. The word often translated as craving or attachment is apadana, which literally means fuel. Our desires become suffering only when we feed them obsessively, like throwing log after log onto a fire until it becomes a consuming blaze. But a small, warm fire brings light and comfort. The secret is not to eliminate the fire, but to tend it wisely. Consider this. You can desire a beautiful sunset and find joy in watching it without needing to capture it in a jar. You can love someone deeply without needing to possess every moment of their attention. You can hope for good health while accepting whatever condition your body presents to you today. The desire itself is not the problem. It is the desperate clinging, the inability to let the experience be what it is without our interference. That creates our pain. Asterisk, there is an old Zen story about a master who kept a small garden behind his temple. One day, a visitor noticed that the garden contained no flowers, no carefully manicured shrubs, only wild grasses and what most would consider weeds. "Master," the visitor said, "why do you not plant beautiful flowers in your garden?" Asterisk, the master smiled and knelt down, gently touching a dandelion that had pushed up through a crack in the stone path. "I do plant flowers," he said softly. "I plant them by not pulling up what grows naturally. Each of these plants is perfect as it is. It is only our ideas about what should be here that make us see weeds instead of wildflowers." This is one of Buddhism's most radical teachings, hidden in plain sight. What if nothing needs to be fixed? What if you, exactly as you are in this moment, with your worries and your joys, your imperfections and your beauty, your confusion and your clarity, are already complete? Not complete in the sense that growth and change are unnecessary, but complete in the sense that you don't need to become someone else to be worthy of love and peace. The ancient Sanskrit word tathata means suckness or thusness, the quality of things being exactly as they are, without addition or subtraction. When we rest in tathata, we stop the exhausting project of constantly trying to improve ourselves, and instead begin the gentle practice of accepting ourselves. This doesn't mean becoming passive or giving up on positive change, but it means ending the war with reality, stopping the background mental commentary that insists things should be different than they are. Here is another hidden truth that the masters discovered in their deepest meditations. Emptiness is not empty. The Buddhist teaching of sunyata, or emptiness, points not to nothingness, but to the pregnant void from which all things arise, and to which they return, like waves on the ocean that are never separate from their source. You are not empty of existence. You are empty of fixed, separate selfhood. You are like space itself, apparently empty, but actually the infinite potential for all experience. Tonight, as you rest in the gentle darkness, You can feel this truth in your bones. You are not your thoughts. They arise in you like birds flying through an open sky. You are not your emotions. They flow through you like weather through a valley. You are not even your body, though you tend it with loving care. You are the aware presence in which all of these experiences arise and pass away, the unchanging witness of the constantly changing dance of life. And here is perhaps the most surprising truth of all. There is no one to become enlightened. Enlightenment is not an achievement that a separate self attains, but the recognition that the separate self was always a kind of optical illusion, a mirage in the desert of consciousness. What awakens is awareness itself, recognizing its own true nature, like the sun realizing it has always been shining, even when clouds seem to obscure its light. Asterisk, asterisk, in the soft hours before dawn, when the world holds its breath between darkness and light, there is a quality of stillness that speaks to something ancient in our hearts. It is in these liminal moments that we can most clearly perceive the nature of suffering, not as a solid thing that weighs us down, but as a kind of forgetting, a temporary clouding of our natural clarity, like mist that seems substantial, but dissolves at the touch of sunlight. The Buddha compared suffering to a dream, not because it isn't real and its effects dreams can wake us with racing hearts and tears on our cheeks, but because it arises from a fundamental misunderstanding about what we are and how reality works. In the dream, we believe we are the character being chased by tigers, when in truth, we are the vast awareness in which the entire dream unfolds, untouched by the drama playing out within our own consciousness. Picture a river flowing through a mountain valley. When the water encounters a boulder, it doesn't stop flowing, it simply finds a way around, sometimes creating the most beautiful waterfalls and pools in the process. The river doesn't suffer because it cannot flow through solid rock. It adapts. It yields. It continues its journey to the sea. Our suffering often comes from trying to flow through the boulders of life, instead of finding the natural pathways around them. But what creates these mental boulders that seem to block our flow? A Buddha identified them with the gentleness of a physician, diagnosing not to condemn, but to heal. He called them the three poisons, though they are less like toxins and more like sleeping medicines that cloud our natural wakefulness. Greed, a desperate grasping for what we think will complete us. Hatred, the fierce pushing away of what we cannot accept. And delusion, the forgetting of our interconnectedness with all life. These are not moral failings, but natural human tendencies that arise from the illusion of separateness. Like a wave forgetting it is made of the same water as the ocean. When we believe ourselves to be isolated beings in a hostile universe, it makes perfect sense to grasp for security, to push away threats, and to forget our fundamental connection to the web of existence that sustains all life. Peace, then, is not the absence of challenge or change. Rivers are not peaceful because they are still, but because they flow in harmony with the landscape they encounter. True peace is the remembering of our fluid nature, our capacity to move around obstacles with grace, to find our way to the sea, no matter what stones lie in our path. It is the recognition that we are not separate from the forces of life, but expressions of them, not victims of change, but partners in the cosmic dance of transformation. As you rest here in this gentle darkness, feeling the soft rhythm of your breathing, you can notice how peace is not something you need to achieve, but something you can remember. It was there in your mother's womb, in the perfect trust of infancy, in moments of deep sleep when all striving ceased. It is there now, beneath the surface thoughts and concerns, like an underground spring that never stops flowing, even when the surface streams run dry. The Zen masters taught that enlightenment is not a destination, but our natural state, temporarily obscured by clouds of conceptual thinking. They called it original face, the face you had before your parents were born, the essence of who you are, beyond all the stories and identities that have accumulated like dust on a mirror. This original nature is not somewhere else, waiting to be found, but here now, closer than your own breath, more intimate than your own heartbeat. In the deepest teachings, peace and suffering are revealed to be like light and shadow, not opposite. Forces in eternal conflict, but different faces of the same reality. Suffering is what happens when awareness becomes narrow and focused on what seems to be wrong. Peace is what happens when awareness relaxes into its natural vastness, like a clenched fist opening to reveal it was always holding the entire sky. Asterisk, asterisk. There is a monastery garden where an ancient cedar tree grows beside a small pond. For centuries, this tree has dropped its needles into the still water, and for centuries, the pond has received them without complaint, allowing them to sink to the bottom where they become rich earth that feeds new life. The pond never says, "Not today, cedar." Tree, I have enough of your offerings. The cedar never says, "I must hold on to these needles forever, for they are part of me." This is letting go in its most natural form, not a forced release, but a gentle allowing of what wants to flow to continue its journey. When we speak of letting go in human terms, we often imagine it as a kind of spiritual athleticism, gritting our teeth and forcing ourselves to release our grip on what we love or fear. But this understanding creates more suffering, like trying to relax by tensing all our muscles. True letting go is less like opening a clenched fist and more like recognizing that our hands were never actually closed, that what we thought we were holding was holding itself, needing no assistance from our anxious grasping. Consider the breath that flows through you as you rest here in the peaceful darkness. You don't hold on to your inhalation, trying to make it permanent. You don't push away your exhalation, fearing it means you will never breathe again. You simply allow the natural rhythm of receiving and releasing, trusting that each exhalation creates space for the next inhalation to arrive. This is the secret of letting go, not the elimination of all attachment, but the cultivation of this kind of natural trust in the rhythm of life. Asterisk, asterisk. What would it mean to love someone and let them go? Not to love them less, but to love them as the sky loves the birds that fly through it, completely, without needing to cage them. To appreciate their presence without demanding it continue forever. To miss them when they're gone, without making their absence wrong. To hold them in your heart while keeping your hands open. This is the paradox of non-attachment. The more freely we hold something, the more deeply we can love it. The Buddha taught that attachment is not the same as love. Indeed, it is often love's opposite. Attachment says, "I love you because you make me feel complete." Love says, "I love you and wish for your happiness, even if that happiness takes you away from me." Attachment creates contracts. I will love you if you stay the same, if you meet my needs, if you don't leave me. Love creates space. I love who you are and who you are becoming, and I trust the wisdom of your own journey. In the deepest sense, letting go means releasing our addiction to controlling outcomes while remaining fully engaged with the process. A gardener plants seeds with great care and attention, waters them, tends the soil, protects the young shoots from harsh weather. But the wise gardener knows that she cannot make the plants grow. She can only create conditions and then step back, trusting the intelligence within the seed to unfold in its own time and way. Asterisk, asterisk. This is how we can engage with our own healing, our relationships, our work in the world. We show up fully. We offer our best efforts. We care deeply, and then we release our demands about how quickly results should come, what form they should take, whether our efforts will be recognized or appreciated. We plant seeds of kindness without needing to see the harvest, offer love without keeping track of what we receive in return, work for justice without requiring that we personally witness. It's triumph. As you feel your body settling deeper into rest, notice how letting go is already happening without your conscious effort. Your muscles are releasing tension. Your breathing is slowing. Your mind is gradually quieting its busy chatter. You are not making these things happen. You are simply not interfering with their natural tendency to occur. This is the essence of Wu Wei, the Taoist principle of non-forcing that runs like a quiet stream through all Buddhist teaching. Letting go is ultimately letting go of the illusion that we were ever in control to begin with. The river was always flowing to the sea. The seasons were always changing. The heart was always beating. Our breath was always breathing itself. We can learn to swim with the current instead of against it, to cooperate with the forces of life instead of exhausting ourselves in futile resistance. In this cooperation, we find not powerlessness, but a different kind of power, the power of alignment, of harmony, of moving with the Tao that underlies all existence. Asterisk, asterisk, in the pearl gray hours just before sunrise, when the world exists in that tender space between sleeping and waking, there is a quality of awareness that the Buddhist masters called Rigpa, naked awareness, unadorned by thoughts or concepts, pure knowing itself. To awaken, in the deepest sense, is not to become someone new, but to recognize who you have always been beneath the layers of conditioning, like a diamond recognizing its own brilliance after being cleaned of accumulated dust. Imagine a person who has been walking through life wearing colored glasses so long that they have forgotten they are wearing them. They see the world tinted blue or green or rose, and they believe this is simply how reality looks. Then one day, quite by accident, the glasses slip from their face, and they see with stunning clarity that the world has always been full of colors they never imagined. This is awakening, not a change in what is, but a change in how we perceive what has always been present. The Buddha's awakening under the Bodhi tree was not the acquisition of special powers or esoteric knowledge, though the stories often make it seem so. It was the simple, earth-shaking recognition of what is always true, that suffering arises from our resistance to the way things are, and that this resistance is optional, like a person suddenly remembering their own name after a long amnesia. He remembered the natural state of consciousness, vast, peaceful, unconditionally loving, already free. But awakening is not a distant goal reserved for special people who sit in meditation for decades. It happens in ordinary moments, in the space between one breath and the next, in the gap between thoughts, in the instant when you stop struggling with what is and simply allow yourself to be held by the mystery of existence. Every time you choose peace over drama, presence over planning, love over fear, you taste the essence of enlightenment. Consider the morning glory that opens its petals to greet the dawn. It doesn't awaken to become something other than itself. It awakens to express its own nature fully, to offer its particular beauty to the world without apology or hesitation. This is what human awakening looks like, not the annihilation of personality or the transcendence of all human experience, but the full flowering of your authentic nature, free from the constraints of who you think you should be. The Zen tradition speaks of awakening as kensho, seeing into one's true nature. But this seeing is not like looking at an object external to yourself. It is more like the moment when your eyes adjust to darkness and you realize that what you thought was empty space is actually full of subtle light and movement. The true nature was always there. You simply developed the capacity to perceive it. In this recognition, many of the problems that seemed so urgent begin to dissolve like morning mist. Not because external circumstances necessarily change, but because your relationship to them transforms. You realize that you are not the small, separate self that needs to fight for survival and significance, but the vast awareness in which all experience arises and passes away. From this perspective, challenges become interesting rather than threatening. Setbacks become teachings rather than failures. And other people become mirrors reflecting different aspects of the same fundamental consciousness. As you rest here, in this gentle darkness, Feeling your body soft and supported, you can notice that awakening is not somewhere else, waiting to be achieved. It is here now, in your capacity to be aware of your own awareness, in your ability to witness your thoughts, without being consumed by them, in the peace that remains constant beneath all the changing contents of your experience. You are already the awakened awareness you seek. You are simply practicing remembering this truth more consistently. The great secret that the masters discovered is that enlightenment is not a permanent state that you either have or don't have, but a recognition that comes and goes like weather through your awareness. Some days you remember clearly who you are. Some days you forget and get caught up in the drama of personality and circumstance. Both are perfect. Even the forgetting serves awakening by creating contrast, by making the remembering more vivid and precious when it returns. Freedom, in the Buddhist understanding, is not the ability to do whatever you want, whenever you want it. That is often just another form of bondage, slavery to impulse and desire. True freedom is the capacity to respond rather than react, to choose your actions from a place of wisdom rather than compulsion, to remain peacefully yourself regardless of what circumstances arise around you. Picture a mountain lake high in the Himalayas, so still and clear that it perfectly mirrors the peaks that surround it. When clouds pass overhead, their reflection appears in the water, but the lake is not disturbed by their movement. When storms come, rain may create ripples on the surface, but the depths remain calm and unchanged. This is the freedom of the awakened heart, fully responsive to life's changes, but not ultimately affected by them. The Sanskrit word moksha means liberation, but not liberation from life, liberation into life, into the full experience of being human without the additional suffering we create through our resistance to what is. It is the freedom of the bird that soars not because it rejects the earth, but because it has learned to dance with the wind, to use the very forces that once seemed to oppose it as support for its flight. Consider what binds you in your daily experience. Often it is not external circumstances, but internal habits of thought and emotion. The worry that circles through your mind like a dog chasing its tail. The anger that burns in your chest long after the triggering event has passed. The fear that whispers warnings about futures that may never come to pass. These are the chains that bind us far more effectively than any prison bars, because we carry them with us wherever we go. True freedom begins with the recognition that you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness in which thoughts arise. You are not your emotions. You are the vast sky through which emotional weather moves. You are not your circumstances. You are the unchanging presence that witnesses all changing conditions. This recognition doesn't make you indifferent to your human experience, but it gives you perspective, like climbing a mountain to see the valley below with new eyes. The freed heart loves more fully, not less, because it loves without the desperate need to possess or control. It grieves more deeply, not less, because it doesn't armor itself against loss. It feels anger when injustice occurs, but it doesn't marinate in resentment. It experiences fear when danger is present, but it doesn't live in constant anxiety about imagined threats. Every emotion is welcomed as a visitor, honored for its message, then released when its purpose is complete. There is a beautiful teaching story about a Zen master who was known for his extraordinary equanimity. A student asked him, "Master, you seem so free from suffering. Do you ever feel sad?" The master smiled and replied, "When sadness is present, I am completely sad. When joy is present, I am completely joyful. When anger arises, I am thoroughly angry. The difference is that I don't carry yesterday's sadness into today's joy, or today's anger into tomorrow's peace. Each emotion is free to be itself fully, and then free to go. This is the ultimate freedom, not the elimination of human experience, but the capacity to be fully present with whatever arises without getting stuck in any particular state. Like a clear mirror, that reflects everything without holding on to any image. The free consciousness receives all of life's offerings with equal grace, knowing that everything that comes will also pass away. As you feel your body growing heavier with approaching sleep, notice how you are already practicing this freedom. You are not trying to hold on to wakefulness or push away drowsiness. You are simply allowing the natural transition from one state to another, trusting the wisdom of your own being to know what is needed in each moment. This is what the sages meant when they spoke of going with the flow, not passive resignation, but active cooperation with the intelligence that breathes you, beats your heart, and knows exactly how to transform food into energy and experience, into wisdom. Freedom is your birthright, as natural to you as breathing. It is not something you need to earn through spiritual practices or good behavior, though these can help you remember what was never actually lost. You are already free to choose love over fear, presence over distraction, peace over drama. In each moment, with each breath, you can exercise this freedom, not as a burden of endless choices, but as the joyful expression of your true nature dancing in the world of form. Asterisk, asterisk, in the heart of the deepest forest, where ancient trees have stood for centuries, and sunlight filters through leaves like liquid gold, there exists a quality of stillness so profound that it seems to have its own presence, its own life. This is not the stillness of death or emptiness, but the dynamic stillness of pure potential, like the moment of perfect balance when a spinning top becomes so centered it appears motionless, or the eye of a hurricane where peace reigns absolute, while tremendous forces swirl around it. The Buddha discovered that beneath all the movement of thought, beneath all the turbulence of emotion, beneath all the constant change of circumstances, there lies this unchanging stillness, not as a void or absence, but as the very ground of being itself, the pregnant emptiness from which all experience arises and to which it returns, like waves on the ocean that are never separate from their source. This stillness is not something you need to create or achieve. Right now, as you rest in the gentle darkness, it is here closer than your breath, more intimate than your heartbeat. It is the aware presence that notices your thoughts without being disturbed by them, the peaceful witness that observes your emotions without being swept away by them. It is what remains constant when everything else in your experience is flowing and changing. Picture a clear mountain pool in early morning, before any wind has stirred its surface. The water is so still it becomes transparent, revealing smooth stones on the bottom, perhaps a fish moving slowly through the depths. This pool reflects the sky so perfectly that for a moment you cannot tell where water ends and heaven begins. This is the stillness of your deepest nature, so transparent, so receptive, that it reflects all of life without being marked or changed by what passes through it. The mystics of many traditions have pointed to this same truth using different words. The Christians called it the peace that passeth understanding. The Taoists spoke of the uncarved block, the original simplicity that exists before complexity arises. The Hindus named it Satchidananda, existence, consciousness, bliss, the fundamental nature of reality itself. But in Buddhism, this stillness is recognized as our most intimate reality, the Buddha nature that has never been born and will never. When we speak of meditation, we often think of it as a practice of making the mind still, as if we were trying to stop the wind from blowing or the river from flowing. But true meditation is the recognition that stillness is already here, that peace is our natural state, temporarily obscured by our fascination with the movement of thoughts and sensations. We don't create stillness through concentration, we simply stop overlooking it, stop being so distracted by the waves that we forget the ocean. In this recognition, something profound shifts in how we experience daily life. Challenges still arise, but they are met from this place of fundamental stillness, like storms passing through a vast sky that remains unmarked by their temporary presence. Emotions still move through us, but they are felt against this background of unchanging peace. Like music played in a cathedral, where the silence between notes is as important as the notes themselves. The deepest teaching is that this stillness is not separate from activity, not opposite to movement, but the very source from which all movement arises. It is the stillness of the hub around which the wheel of life turns, the silence out of which all sounds emerge and into which they dissolve. When you speak from this stillness, your words carry a different quality. They come from depth, rather, and surface agitation. When you act from this stillness, your actions have precision and grace, like an archer who is so centered that the arrow finds its target without strain or effort. As you feel yourself sinking deeper into rest, notice how stillness is not the absence of life, but its most concentrated essence. Your body is still, but within that stillness, your heart beats steadily. Your breath flows rhythmically. Countless processes of healing and renewal continue their ancient work. This is the paradox that the sages understood, that in the deepest stillness, everything necessary is happening perfectly, without any need for our conscious control or interference. In the high country of the Himalayas, where the air is thin and silence has weight, the great rivers begin their journey as tiny springs bubbling up from underground sources, fed by snowmelt and the patient work of gravity drawing water through stone and soil for centuries. These humble beginnings hold no hint of the mighty currents they will become, the Ganges that will flow through countless villages and cities, carrying prayers and ashes and the dreams of millions. Gamai Kang that will nourish rice paddies and fishing communities across a dozen nations. This is how wisdom moves through a human life. It begins as a small spring of awareness, a moment of recognition that there is more to existence than the surface drama of daily concerns. Perhaps it starts with a sunset that stops you in your tracks, a moment of inexplicable peace in the middle of ordinary activity, a grief so deep that it cracks open your heart to reveal the tenderness that was always there. These are the springs from which the river of awakening flows. Like those mountain streams, wisdom doesn't flow in straight lines. It finds its way around obstacles, sometimes disappearing underground for long stretches before emerging again into daylight. Sometimes it moves quickly over rocky terrain, creating rapids and waterfalls that are both beautiful and turbulent. Sometimes it spreads wide and slow through meadowlands, nourishing everything it touches with patient generosity. Always, it moves toward the sea, toward that vast recognition of unity that is the goal of all spiritual seeking. Above the mountains where these rivers are born, the stars wheel through their ancient patterns, the same constellations that guided travelers and lovers and mystics for thousands of years. The Big Dipper pours its starlight like celestial water. Orion walks his eternal path across the winter sky. The North Star holds its position while everything else appears to circle around it, a perfect metaphor for the unchanging awareness around which all the movements of your life revolve. These stars are so distant that their light takes years to reach us. When you look up at the night sky, you are literally seeing into the past, witnessing light that began its journey when you were younger, or before you were born, or in some cases before human civilization began. This is how the wisdom of the Buddha reaches us, light that began its journey 2,500 years ago, still traveling, still illuminating, still pointing the way home to our own true nature. The moon, your nightly companion, demonstrates the teaching of impermanence with gentle persistence. New moon, waxing crescent, first quarter, waxing gibbous, full moon, waning gibbous, last quarter, waning crescent, the endless cycle that mirrors your own rhythms of expansion and contraction, activity and rest, clarity and mystery. The moon doesn't resist its phases, doesn't try to remain full forever or skip over the darkness of the new moon. It accepts each stage as perfect and necessary, teaching you to do the same with your own cycles of joy and sorrow, understanding and confusion, connection and solitude. And always, the mountains stand in their silent testimony to endurance and perspective. They have watched civilizations rise and fall, seasons change millions of times, rivers carve new channels, and forests grow and die and grow again. From their peaks, the concerns that loom so large in daily life appear in proper proportion important, but not ultimate, real, but not permanent, worthy of care, but not of panic. The Buddhist path is like climbing one of these mountains. At the base, surrounded by thick forest, your view is limited to the path immediately in front of you. Every tree seems significant, every rock an obstacle. But as you climb higher, pausing to rest and look back, you begin to see the landscape spread out below, a pattern of valleys and ridges, the way different paths converge and diverge, the vastness that was always there, but hidden by your limited perspective. Near the summit, above the tree line where the air is thin and every breath must be conscious and deliberate, you discover that what you thought was the top of the mountain was only a foothill. Peak after peak stretches away into the distance, each one revealing new vistas, new understandings, new depths of mystery to explore. This is the endless nature of awakening, not a destination to be reached once and for all, but an ever-deepening intimacy with the inexhaustible mystery of existence. As you rest here in this moment, feeling the gentle pull of sleep like gravity, drawing you toward rest, you can sense your connection to all of these vast rhythms, the rivers flowing toward the sea, the stars wheeling through their courses, the moon blessing the earth with reflected sunlight, the mountains standing witness to the eternal dance of impermanence and change. You are not separate from any of this. You are a unique expression of the same intelligence that guides rivers to the ocean and keeps planets in their orbits, that knows when seeds should sprout and when leaves should fall. Asterisk, asterisk. And so we come to the gentle close of our journey together, like a river reaching the vast embrace of the sea, like a day releasing itself gratefully into the arms of night. We have wandered together through the gardens of ancient wisdom, sat with masters who knew the secret of holding life lightly, explored the pathways that lead from suffering to peace, from grasping to letting go, from the illusion of separation to the recognition of our fundamental unity with all that is. The teachings we have shared tonight are not meant to be understood with the mind alone, but absorbed slowly, like rainwater soaking into earth, like moonlight settling into a quiet lake. They are seeds planted in the fertile darkness of rest, where they can take root without the interference of conscious effort, sprouting in their own time into new ways of seeing, new ways of being, new capacities for peace and compassion. As your breath grows slower and deeper, as your body settles more completely into comfort, let these words fade into the background like distant music, leaving only their essence, the gentle reminder that you are already whole, already loved, already free. The peace you have been seeking has been seeking you with equal intensity, and in this moment of surrender, seeker and sought dissolve into the simple recognition of what has always been present. You are like the lotus flower that grows in muddy water but blooms unstained, offering its beauty to the world while remaining rooted in the earth of ordinary human experience. Your struggles and sorrows are not obstacles to awakening, but the very compost from which wisdom grows. Your joys and loves are not distractions from the spiritual path, but expressions of your Buddha nature revealing itself through the unique prism of your particular life. Tomorrow, when you wake to the demands and challenges of another day, you may not remember the specific words shared in this quiet hour, but something deeper will remain, a quality of ease that comes from knowing you are not alone in this vast mystery, a trust in the intelligence that beats your heart and breathes your breath, a gentle confidence that whatever arises can be met with the same awareness that has guided you into this peaceful rest. The Buddha taught that we are all like sleepers who have forgotten we are dreaming. Tonight, As you move from the waking dream into the dreams of sleep, may you carry with you the knowing that both states arise within the same unchanging awareness, the same luminous consciousness that is your true nature. Whether you are active or resting, thinking or not thinking, happy or sad, you remain the vast sky in which all weather patterns arise and dissolve. Thank you, dear friend, for sharing this quiet path with me tonight, for allowing these ancient teachings to find a resting place in your heart, for trusting enough to let go into the mystery of sleep. In a world that often seems divided by so much conflict and confusion, you have chosen the way of peace, the path of understanding, the gentle discipline of letting go. This choice ripples outward in ways you may never know, touching other lives. With the blessing of your presence, wherever you rest your head tonight, whether in a familiar bed surrounded by the comfort of home, or in some temporary shelter on life's journey, or perhaps listening to these words in a place of uncertainty or struggle, may peace find you there. May the Dharma light your dreams with gentle wisdom. May you wake refreshed and renewed, carrying within you the quiet strength that comes from remembering who you truly are. The cherry blossoms that began our journey together continue their ancient dance, falling when it is time to fall, teaching their silent lesson of beautiful impermanence. The monk walking through the bamboo forest has reached his destination, but the path he walked remains, inviting other travelers to discover their own way home to the heart of being God. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free from suffering. May all beings awaken to their true nature. May all beings rest in the peace that is their birthright. And may you, precious soul, drift now into the sweetest dreams, held safe in the loving embrace of the universe that knows your name, that celebrates your existence, that has been waiting since the beginning of time for you to remember that you are ready home. Good night, and be well, dear friend, until we meet again in the space where all hearts are one, where all seeking ends in finding, where all questions dissolve in the vast silence of love itself.